Hour 2 Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker. Now up on TSN 2. Bryan Hayes, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Mike DiStefano, a.k.a. my Parzial's brother, in studio. We got a big hour. Mike Johnson will join us. Try to break down what happened with Canada at the World Juniors. They are out. Czechia knocking them out earlier this morning with 11 seconds to go.
Brutal.
It was like 4 bounces on that.
Tough bounce.
Yeah.
Really, like it looked like it went stick, shin pad, like post pad.
It was brutal.
It was brutal.
It's a tough
Very
way
deflating.
to go. Like, you can make the argument, sure, like, yeah, okay, they failed to get the puck out, they gave it away, and put themselves in that position, like you're seeing it right now on TSN2, but, like, ultimately, that's a terrible bounce. Like,
Yes.
It goes off of Radek Bonk, and then it ends up going off the post and in. Like, that, how often does that sequence happen? Right, like that's 1 out of 100 times,
And Canada
ends up happening that way and bouncing that way.
Canada was all over them too.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
they were all over them, but that's the nature of the sport. I mean, we talked about it for basically the full 4 p.m. hour. Goaltending is the conversation in this city, in Toronto, with what's going on with the Leafs in the country in terms of the World Juniors, but also the national team. Hasn't been an issue for the national team because they never play. Right? Like we don't, there's never best on best. So it has not been an issue necessarily, but I think it's coming. And at some point that conversation is going to be had. But it sucks. It always stings when Canada goes out early. And MJ obviously over there with Gordon, a crew calling things. And we'll catch up with Johnny in a few moments and get a full breakdown on the tournament, how the Leaf prospects look, Fraser, Minten, Easton, Cowan. Like, that's a pretty cool story if you're a Leaf fan. You got one of your prospects is the captain of the team.
Yeah.
Turns out the way it turns out. Not necessarily ideal, but a cool journey for Fraser Minten. We'll see what comes of it in the rest of his season out in the WHL, and Easton Cowan down in London. But, you know, as for the Leafs, they're in LA tonight. They start a trip. The Raptors are out west. Kind of strange how that works out.
Both of them together.
Yeah. Like 2 MLSE birds flying west. I guess the Raptors are in Memphis to start, but then eventually go through Sacramento, the Clippers, the Lakers. And the Leafs are out in L.A. tonight, and like Sheldon Keefe is not committed to Dennis Hilda be even playing tomorrow night in Anaheim. He's going to play.
Yeah.
I would expect that he'll play.
It's been very lip service.
Yeah, because he's done this before. Well, I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. And then eventually he ends up going with the backup goalie. And I'm curious to see the kid play.
I think they want to see him play,
I think they should, because they're going to need somebody at some point. Ilya Samsonov is not an option anymore.
Hey, I thought it was really funny. A little bit of humor from Sheldon Keefe. I don't know if he meant it or not, but he was like, essentially, we've been tracking him. We've been keeping an eye on him.
I hope
if you haven't noticed, we've been looking for alternatives here.
Yeah.
What he was kind of saying, right? Like,
well,
they're paying attention to the fact that he's been pretty good in the AHL. But look, you talk about rolls of the dice. Take a 22-year-old, 6'7" kid whose only pro experience in North America is a handful of games in the American Hockey League.
Yeah.
Throw him into the NHL ringer in front of behind a team playing in front of him that, as we talked with the O-Dog in the last segment, really doesn't play grown man hockey yet. Still plays very irresponsibly at times. Gives the puck away too much. Does not have, by any stretch of the imagination, a great defensive core. You throw all that into the blender and say, hey, Dennis Hilderby, are you going to be good?
Right. And you're up here because we need you to be up here. Not because, yes, you're knocking on the door to an extent, but you're not blowing through it. Like, this is his first year in North America.
Right.
So, you know, it's obviously a desperation play. It had to happen. Samsonov had to be waived. They could not put him back in the net. And these are your options. So you call him up. We'll see what he's got. Likely tomorrow. Martin Jones goes tonight. But it was not the best, turning of the page into a new year for the Toronto sports scene, where the Raptors lose to the Pistons. They did make a deal. The Anunoby deal at least signals, in my opinion, okay, they're moving somewhere else. I think what it really says is we're building around Scotty Barnes. Everything here has got to be about Scotty. I think Siakam will be the next to go.
Well, I think they'd love to move him, but they've been trying to move him.
Yeah, and they need to get the price that they are. This is the beauty of trades: is once it happens, even though they're not speaking, Masai, Bobby, etc., they're going to say, "This is what we're always waiting for." Was R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly and the Detroit Pistons second round.
And they finally met our
That's
demands.
what we wanted.
They met the demands, what we were looking for. Maybe it's not a perfect comparison, but I do think back to maybe like the Rudy Gay situation where, okay, let's see what happens after this trade. Like, I don't know if Pascal is necessarily a guarantee to go. What if actually things go positively over the next month. Maybe it turns into a quick retool as opposed to a rebuild.
Listen, Siakam is still, I think Barnes has outplayed him this year, but Siakam's right there in terms of like his stature in the league. He's a very good player.
He's an all-star player.
The issue is that if you're going to give him a max deal, which is what he's likely going to demand, you're into luxury tax territory. They're not doing that for a team that's going to win 38 games.
No.
Like MLSC has been very supportive, but they're not paying into the tax for a team that's not going to win anything. So I think the economics really factor in the end. More on that later in the hour. Again, the Raptors are in Memphis, and they're on a West Coast swing. The Leafs are on a West Coast swing, and Canada is out at the World Juniors. Never want to see that being the case, but it is the case. It's a reality. They lost in the quarters this morning. The man that, of course, has been in the building calling every single game joins us now over in Sweden. Here's our TSN Hockey analyst joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Mike Johnson. Johnny, can you explain this to the country? What happened here? How are we out in the quarters?
Well, I mean, we played a pretty good team, a team that we took to overtime last World Junior with Connor Bedard and barely got a gold medal out of it. That returned a whole bunch of players. They have about half their roster playing in the CHL. And this is always going to be a tough game. And it was exactly as advertised. Goaltending in the first period for Matisse Russo for Canada was not good. They gave up 2 goals. Both of them were stoppable. Now, he stopped the penalty shot. He made a couple other big saves, but those 2 shots, they were not pucks that should go in. So you're chasing the game. They get it back to 2-2. They were the better team, Hayes, in the second and third period. Shot attempts were like 60-30 in those 2 periods in favor of Canada. It was all Canada. They tied it up, and then, Czechia banks went in off Oliver Bog's stick. Seconds left when they had barely even gotten over the red line. It was one of those times where all the moments over the years where Canada always wins these games, and we just sort of expect that they'll find a way to win these games because they generally have. It was a game where they didn't. The larger issue on this team specifically was that it was hard for them to kind of create quality offense. They worked hard. They got the puck around the net a lot, but the finish and the plays around the net, probably not as good as they were hoping it was going to be, which made all the games against good teams really tough.
Yeah, and I think Macklin Celebrini did everything he possibly could, considering his age.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I thought he was very impressive, but being directly compared to Bedard a year ago is just not fair.
Oh.
I mean, it's not fair because of Bedard's freakish nature and the performance he put on in Halifax last year. But explain to us what you think Celebrini will be at the NHL level. It feels like he's a lock to go first overall. That could change clearly. But, like, is he close to the Bedard, McDavid, Sid level? Is he Nugent Hopkins? Like, what are we talking about here?
So he's really good. You remember, he's like, Connor Bedard's such an unfair comparison,
Yeah.
but Konsta Helenius, who plays for Finland, it's supposed to be top 5, top 8 pick this coming draft. He's miles better than him, right? Like, when you compare him to his own age group, he is clearly the best in this tournament. Maybe because of body type, and this might be a little bit bullish, but like Brayden Point, solid two-way, but like goal-scoring, dynamic, first-line centerman. Is he going to be the best player in the world? But he's going to be really, really, really good, and he's just 17. So, I think maybe Brayden Point. Now, Brayden Point, could have been the Conn Smythe. He scored 50, he scored 40, he's got 90 points. He's been really good. I think something like that would probably be a more accurate comparison. And I don't know where you put Brayden Point in the hierarchy of the league centerman, but he's top 10, top 12 centerman in the world, something like that. And I think that's maybe where Celebrini maxes out at, which is pretty darn good.
Yeah, pretty good, pretty darn good. Now, to get a little Leaf-centric, MJ, obviously 2 Leaf prospects were very prominent in this lineup. The captain, Fraser Minten, Easton Cowan. What did you make of both of those players?
So, it's funny because I'm watching Fraser Minten. He's the captain, and I think, that's a real testament to the kind of person he is, even as much as the kind of player he is. And he played on the wing. He plays in the middle a lot in junior. And he was solid. His puck play was very deferential because he played with Celebrini a lot, and I found that it looked like he was trying to force the puck to Celebrini, which, I get why you do that, almost at the expense of playing your natural game. And so, he's on the power play early, he got taken off of there because it just, again, sort of symbolic with the team. He was solid and good. The high-end offensive finish and plays with the puck probably weren't there the way that he wished they were in this tournament. And so that would be, the observation. I don't know what the room was like. I don't know what leadership is like, but, you're named the captain for a reason. That's a real feather in your cap. But you probably would like to see him a bit more scorer, producer mentality. In this team, in this role, he was very kind of defensive and solid and stable as opposed to dynamic. Maybe that changes in the next couple of years. For Easton Cowan, very much the same thing. He played on the wing, sometimes checking lines, sometimes, support roles on offensive lines, never really got in the power play. Good energy, good pace. Same kind of, if you're going to say, if I was the Maple Leaf player development team and I watched this tournament, I would say Easton Cowan, like your package of what you do well, but we want to see you learn better puck skills, better puck protection, better puck management when you're kind of trying to play one-on-one plays, and better shooting, which I think you can all improve on as you get older, stronger, and everything else. But they were good, but much like Canada, they were just maybe dynamic is the word I would use, and they weren't that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to go with. It didn't seem like Canada really took over many games. I mean, they blew out Latvia, but outside of that, Finland gave them a good run for their money. Germany was pretty tight until the third period, and then tonight, this morning, losing to Czechia. Do you think that's maybe indicative of where Canada, not that they're slipping as a hockey superpower, but is there any concerns there that maybe it's happening, or just these other countries are starting to really grow?
I think we got to just dial it back. They just won 2 in a row. They're going to have the first overall pick again. I think maybe this year they weren't the best team. If you think about it, they lost to the Americans in pre-tournament. They lost to the Swedes. They got by Finland, whereas Finland wasn't playing very well, but they got by Finland. Fair enough. They lost to the Czechs and were pushed by Germany. So, when they played the other good teams, they were very close games. They were not dominant. I think that's more about this team, more so than some sort of testimonial on Canada and the talent they produce or whatever that might be. Canada should have won this game. Funny thing. They deserve to win this game, not by a ton, but they were a better team on aggregate in the entire game. They just didn't. And that happens is just rare because for whatever reason in this tournament, group of kids year after year after year, which is different every year, somehow finds a way to win these moments. And they just weren't able to find a way this time.
So, we just saw Sweden barely get by themselves on
overtime against Switzerland.
Yeah,
come on.
Exactly.
Right.
I guess the question is is there a dominant team at this tournament, or is it just a lot of parity, or could that be a topic of discussion moving forward? That maybe the gap is closing. It's not that Canada or the U.S. or whatever have taken their foot off the pedal. It's that other teams might be catching up. Is that possible?
So
go ahead.
That's possible. Now, I do think the best team is the American team.
Mm-hmm.
They had to go to overtime to beat Czechia in a shootout, but they are the best, deepest, most consistently dominant team. They have so many talented players. I think that is also indicative of where the world of hockey is going, that the Americans are churning out tons and tons of good players. The volume is there because of the population and the infrastructure. But I think maybe the one thing we are seeing again is that, do you remember back century 2000, Czechia and Slovakia were borderline as good as Canada and America? Mm-hmm. Not quite, but right there. And then for 15 years, that wasn't the case. It feels like maybe with what Czechia has done the last couple of World Juniors, what Slovakia has done on the international stage, maybe the conclusion we can draw is that those countries are sort of rebounding and getting closer to Canada, U.S., Sweden. And they closed that gap where it's no longer a foregone conclusion that the top teams will easily beat Czechia and Slovakia.
With Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst. So I know you're knee deep in the World Juniors clearly, but you're tracking what's going on over here, and we'll get to the Leafs and
Hill
just
the Beast.
the Hill the Beast. Yeah, it's obviously it's a move out of desperation. It's not about him. It's about Samsonov, because Samsonov they couldn't play him anymore. Keefe, that's as blunt as a coach is going to be. The way he was speaking on Samsonov in Columbus and effectively said, I can't play him anymore. He won't play anymore. I think they gave him too long of a leash. Personally, it's easy to say it now, looking back on it. But I was making those points 2 weeks ago. I thought he was done. But now you got a scenario where, Johnny, we're into January. We're 2 weeks away from the halfway point of the season, 2 months away from the trade deadline, and Martin Jones and Dennis Hildeby are your tandem. Like, it's scary, man. They are, like I said last hour, because of that, like, it's not a lock they make the playoffs. They should, but you know how it goes. If you have bad goaltending, man, everything is on the table at that point.
Well, what's the expression? Goaltending's not everything until you don't have it.
Exactly.
Then it is. And now we're all hopeful that Woll is able to get back whatever a month and play the way he played before. But yeah, I mean, the playoffs are maybe, the Leafs are not in a great spot in the standing. They're in a good spot, but they're not in a great spot in the standing. It's all quite close and mushy and tighter than they would want at this point. And can they run through the dog days? Like, January is the hardest month. It's tiring. You can't quite see the finish line. You're too far away from the start line. The trade deadline's kind of off in the distance. It's just a muddy kind of grind, and you need your goaltenders, both of them, to be good. And I have no idea what Hildeby can do or cannot do. But even Martin Jones, while he's been a lovely, pleasant story, still Martin Jones in the last 3 years. The reason why he wasn't in the NHL, respectfully speaking, he's had a great career, but he's not a top flight goaltender. And we can't lose sight of the fact that this year is very much a sort of cup or bust sort of year, right? Like, this is not, like, they're not in any way punting on a season. They can't afford to. Like, every year they have to are expecting to try to win the Stanley Cup. And you look at Martin Jones and Hildeby, and even Woll, who's got so little experience and a history of having a hard time staying healthy. It's a tricky situation. But, hey, talk to Carolina, New Jersey, talk to Edmonton. Other Stanley Cup contenders are also in the same place, struggling with their goaltenders. Leafs aren't alone. I think the Leafs are good enough, and what may save the Leafs, amazingly enough, their division might not be that good.
Well, that's what's become...
All those teams that were taking strides. Detroit, Ottawa, any of those teams make the playoffs. And, in fact, they might be the 4 of the bottom 5 teams in the Eastern Conference when it's all said and done.
That's what's...
And then the wild card is Tampa. Like, is Tampa what they were? Will they get it together? They're still kind of, they're okay, but they're not really charging. I think that might buy Toronto time to sort through what's going on in net.
Well, and I think that's where, like, the other side of the coin is the disappointment of how they've been playing recently in the Samsonov situation is they should be breathing very easy.
Yeah.
Like, they
should be 10 up.
Exactly.
10 up and just be like, yeah, we're good.
We're fine.
Good.
Exactly.
No rush. We got time, nothing but time. But they're not there, partly because of Samsonov, partly because of their inability to beat the teams that are way below them in the standings, which can be hard to do, but it's been a thing with this team for a few years. It would be frustrating because they're just with everyone else now. They're better than, points percentage, slightly better, but they're right in the mush with everybody else.
Yeah, that's it. That's the position they found themselves in. And like you mentioned, the dog days of January and how tough it is. I do think, though, if you're Shanahan, if you're Trey Living, this is where them being a veteran team, which they are, and having consistency in terms of their core, you should be able to ride that. Like, this is a big month for vets like John Tavares, who's quieted down a lot recently. Was really quiet the other night. Really quiet. But Matthews is not a kid. Mitch Marner did not have a good night the other night. He was awful, quite frankly. He's got, like, this is why you get paid. This is why you've been in the league 7, 8, 10 years. This is why Keefe has got all those points that have accumulated over his regular season career for this month. Like, this is it. You got the next 15, 17 games. If your goaltending isn't great, you can't just pack up shop. Like, you got to find a way to grind here, man. You are expected to, at a minimum, be a playoff team. And even that, like, the goalposts are moving. It was supposed to be...
It was cup,
to your point,
right?
exactly. Like, you're in a cup window. And if that's in question, that'll be challenged. Like, we'll see what they're made of in the next month and a half.
Listen, you said it, because I've been on teams, good ones, I've been on teams, bad ones. And, like, when it gets tough, when it gets sticky, like not just the kind of emotionally tough, but like kind of tough times in the season, whatever, you lean on your best players, carry you through, and to be difference makers all the time. Toronto's fortunate that they have a ton of world-class difference makers. And those guys are going to have to carry the ball. If the goaltending is slightly less than league average, they're not stealing you games, you have to play well enough that they don't need to steal you games. And don't just say, well, look at our goaltending, we're down to our third and fourth string or whatever. That's not good enough. That won't fly this year. They're too good, and their standards should be higher than that because they're capable of dealing with this goaltending and still come out fighting for second in the division, whatever it might be. You're right. Like, this is why you get paid the most in the league, or all those guys make all that money, because they're that good. And in these moments, in the next month, when things are not perfect, they're good enough to make it okay.
I'm sure you've seen this Cole Perfetti, Ryan Hartman situation.
Yeah.
It's wild. So I play the clip, but the clip's like a minute and a half. Cole Perfetti was mic'd up when Hartman is a loose cannon.
Oh, yeah.
This guy's a nuisance in the league. Yes, he's suspended, fined all the time. And if you look at it, it's so blatant, he high sticks him off the draw.
He punches him with his nub of his stick.
And what's wild is Hartman was not the centerman on the draw. The original centerman got kicked out, so Perfetti steps in and takes one right off the chops. But Perfetti was mic'd up for afterwards when Hartman admitted, I did it on purpose because of the Dillon Kaprizov hit.
Yeah.
Where Kaprizov now he's out, he's injured. Minnesota was furious about it. But Perfetti being mic'd up, the league cannot use a guilty admission by Ryan Hartman because of the CBA agreement that happened when you were in the league, Johnny, back in 2005. Like, what a wild story this is. And even the other element is Perfetti kind of breaking the code, like what happens on the ice stays on the ice here. Like, I'm curious your take on that too, Johnny, because Perfetti's a young guy, and he just admitted Hartman was talking to him and said what he said.
Stuart Hartman
basically
premeditated. He acknowledged that Hartman premeditated slashed him in the face.
Yeah.
Which, if that was the case, and it obviously is the case, and we know it's the case, you would suspend him for multiple games, not just the league maximum fine. But because you can't use what we all know to be true, it's like inadmissible evidence, even though everyone can acknowledge that it's correct. That it's just an inadvertent slash on a face-off, and so it's kind of reckless, but that's worth a fine. It's so peculiar. This was part of, when we came out of the lockout in 2004, Hayes, trying to grow the game and add access and personality and bring fans on the ice. This idea that we would let people mic us up for games, but very situation was why the PA tried to protect. Like, you can't use whether, I say, hey, I'm going to go kill you, and then I hit you hard from behind, and like somehow that, or if you say something worse that you're not supposed to say, or that you can't say, like that kind of stuff. They did not want that to be part of any sort of evaluation for discipline to protect players from this exact situation. But when Perfetti comes out and says it, and he said it so matter-of-factly, like just having a conversation with his buddy, it felt like he's a young guy. He probably didn't think that this might be something you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like, you're kind of violating the code of secrecy of what happens on the ice, stays on the ice, by just sort of frankly admitting what we all know to be true. But it is crazy. But it does, like, Hartman he's reckless. Like, I don't know how many times he's been fined and suspended, but it feels like it's been 5 or
a lot.
7 fines, I think 3 suspensions throughout his career.
Yeah. Like,
so
what's with
10
this guy?
times he's crossed the line.
A couple cross-check ones at that. Like,
It's
that's not
always
even his
stick
first.
penalties,
Like, it's
too.
always a cross-check.
Like, I don't think of him as like
always
a
stick penalties.
tough player. Exactly. Like, he's aggressive, but he's not like a daunting figure where he's beating the hell out of people and getting games.
No, he's just reckless with his stick. He swings his stick around carelessly all the time. And I don't know, maybe you think he's going to get him more space on the ice, or maybe it's just whatever. But I will say this. Time he does it. Like, okay, I'm not going to suggest for a second George Peros is compromised. I'm not anything like that. But just your human nature, right? This guy did something that he was guilty of, an infraction that would warrant 2 games. He premeditatedly, like I said, I'm going to slash the guy in the face in retribution for something else. We can't have that in the NHL on any level, Hartman or otherwise. But I can't suspend him now because of it would be too obvious if I came down hard that I was sort of influenced by things I can't be influenced by.
Mm-hmm.
Next time he does it, I will not forget what happened last time, and I might be influenced next time. And the way he plays, it seems like guaranteed that sometime in the next 2 years, there will be a next time.
Yeah, there will be.
Tack on a couple.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, exactly.
Tack on a couple more next time. Absolutely.
All right, Johnny. Well, enjoy the semis and the gold medal game. And next year, what? We're back in Ottawa? Canada rules next year.
Next year, we'll bonanza and be in Ottawa, be going crazy. Hazy, like I bring you in to host all your 17 hits you do every day from the rink in Ottawa.
I love it. I will be there. If the invite is there, I will be there.
It's out.
All right.
You can come in the booth with me every game you want.
Beautiful. Lock it in. I'll see you next year, Johnny. Thanks, buddy.
All right, boys. Have a good night.
Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander, in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. Was it Tim Peel, the ref, that was mic'd and was like, I had to give him one, and then he lost his career?
Right.
Now, he was retiring, I believe, anyway, but they were like,
was,
we can't have that anymore. You're out.
Even though he was doing something that we all know every
knows.
referee does, which is make up calls whenever you kind of make a bad one or a borderline one, you give another one to the other team.
I don't understand how there was no like built-in clause where it's like, okay, but if you cause harm to someone else, then you've lost your privileges with this hot mic. You know what I mean?
I know, but everything's a negotiation, and the players. Like, I understand where the players are coming from because, like, this is such
it was supposed to protect verbally. What was said verbally.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, you can't, and let's be clear here, the league doesn't want it either.
No.
They don't want a superstar player using a word they're not supposed to word and use and then expose it. They're not going to do that. So, like, I'd have to believe both sides were pretty clear, like, we don't need it, we don't want it, let's make sure it's clean. And I understand where the players were like, listen, you got to protect me here. If you want me to be mic'd up.
But to me, that's two different things. Like, this is like, they have it on tape and it was mic'd up and the league's not going to use it against him. That's fair. But this is Cole Perfetti telling the world that he said this to me, that he informed me of his intention and the reason behind it.
That's different. I agree with you. You would think Peros and company would call Perfetti and say, like, what happened? What did you see? Did anything lead up to it that, and then if Perfetti is willing to tell the media, you'd think he would tell Peros. Like, the guy literally said to me afterwards, hey, man, I high stick to you because of what happened with Kaprizov.
Right. And Kaprizov's out 1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we had to get you back.
But even
that's not about being
that has nothing to do with being mic'd.
That's about somebody saying, by the way, George Peros, this is what he said to me after he slashed me in the face intentionally.
Well, and this is where, like, the nature of the old boys club and the nature of, the old school mentality is, I think the guy who is going to be putting himself in more of a precarious position around the league is Perfetti.
Yeah.
Not Hartman.
Exactly.
Which is wild when you think about it. Yeah. Hartman took an intentional swing at a guy's face who had nothing to do with the question, the play in question.
But Perfetti's the bad guy.
But yet Perfetti, you should know better because he outed this guy.
Well,
and
you don't
again, you can call it absurd, you can call it stupid all you want. It doesn't matter what the guy on the couch thinks.
No.
What matters is what does the Players Association think and what do the players think? And I guarantee you there are players in the league looking at Perfetti saying, shut up.
Yeah, why would you say that?
What are you doing?
Right.
Why are you admitting that we're mic'd up and that stuff's out there?
Well, let's be honest. I guarantee you that's not the first time that conversation has been had.
Yeah.
Like, I can guarantee that.
What do you mean? It's like a player admitting?
Admitting. It's like, hey, I had to do. But that happens all the time. I mean, didn't Nick Foligno come out and say, hey, when that issue happened, when Corey Perry hit John Tavares, he came out and said, hey, I had to fight you. That's basically the same thing.
Right, exactly.
Like, I had to do it. I had to, like, it realistically is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Perfetti was not a willing combatant, where I guess Corey Perry kind of was, but it's very similar. It's someone admitting I wanted to harm him because of what happened in retaliation. Right. It's the same thing.
Right. Although Perfetti was not Brenden Dillon. That's what's interesting here. It's like Perry.
Well, Foligno wasn't Tavares.
No, I understand that, but Perry was literally involved. Regardless of what, I agree with you. Your premise is accurate.
Right.
That you could see it. They were watching.
That's no specific player.
Foligno was like, "We're going." Perry was like, "Really, man? Come on, I didn't mean to." And then they fought. But this is different because, like, this is just Hartman saying someone's going to get hurt here.
Right. But that's
like,
the
I'm
thing,
going to smack somebody.
Like, yeah, in a high-speed collision like the one with Perry and Tavares, you're like, you can't prove intention, right? Like, and Corey Perry can say, I didn't mean to do it. And what are you going to say? Oh, yes, you did. Well, we can all disagree on it. But here's a guy saying, this was my intention.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
Like, and we don't hear that in the NHL. We never hear it because no one ever says, hey, he told me he intended to do it.
Well, and that, again, getting back to Perfetti's role in all this, which is wild because he's a victim that got hit in the face. I would assume George Peros and the league not ecstatic either.
No.
Because now it's like the world knows
This
that
happens.
there was a smoking gun.
Yeah.
Like they're mic'd and they have access to it, and they probably know. Hartman said, hey, man, I did that on purpose.
Right.
And yet they have to plead ignorance and be like, well, let's pretend we didn't know that. You know, it really is. It's like the jury. It's, you know, hey, jury, pretend you didn't hear that the guy just admitted he killed that guy.
Yeah, right.
How are you supposed to do that?
I would love to hear some of those conversations that don't get out there. The ones that are buried away, I would love to hear some.
Oh, the tape?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You hear, like,
Oh, there's stuff said
I've
on the
heard
ice.
stuff from you know the guys that work the archives of like the great games, and like the people will tell you like the Michael Jordan trash talk mic'd up is like the greatest
I would
mic'd
bet.
up ever.
Yeah.
Like,
I would
no,
bet.
they can't let it out because
No.
it's just not appropriate to listen to.
Right. And Mike was, to be fair to him, was like, I'm working under the premise that I'm not mic'd.
Right.
You know, like we're playing a game here. Yes, there's 20,000 people in, and we are mic'd, but
I'm trying to destroy these guys, and I'm going to say whatever I need to say to destroy them.
exactly.
Right.
So, anyway. All right. Confirm or deny coming up. And more on the juniors, what happened with Canada today. The Leafs are in action tonight. The Raptors coming off a big win last night against Cleveland. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
I can neither confirm or deny that this is in fact a segment.
Austin trades Andrew Raycroft to Toronto in exchange for the rights to Tuukka Rask.
It's been my honor and a privilege to serve as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
It's time for Confirm or Deny.
Do you regret giving all those gentlemen the no trades or no movement clauses?
Well, I can neither confirm or deny that.
I can't confirm or deny.
All right, confirm or deny. Here we go. We all know how this is played. Dave Feschuk, you've played it. Else, brother, you've played it. Very simple stuff. Statements are made. We go around the table. We either confirm or we deny. All right? Here we go. Confirm or deny. Ilya Samsonov will play at least one more game for the Maple Leafs this season.
I am going to deny it. I'm going to deny it. Mainly because I think that they're actually going to go out and get another goaltender and just completely look at this guy and say he's a wash at this point. They're going to wash their hands. He's down the minors. Maybe he fixes himself. Maybe he doesn't. But I think that they're going to punt on Samsonov and just move forward with whether it's Woll, Hildeby, Martin Jones. Perhaps they bring in another guy. But I think at this point, Sheldon Keefe had some pretty scathing remarks on this guy on Saturday.
Yeah.
Very scathing. He pretty much said, I have zero faith and trust in this player. We need someone else to come play. And I have more faith in a 22-year-old who's never played a game in the NHL going forward.
Yeah.
So I'm going to deny it.
You're going to deny it. Okay.
I'm going to confirm it because as much as I'm sure Brad Friedland would love to bring in an established goaltender, Jacob Markstrom from the old Calgary Flames comes to mind and obviously will be mentioned between now and the trade deadline, no doubt. I just don't think it's going to be that easy. Not only do they have to get a goaltender if they want to do that, they got to get defensemen. I mean, we've been talking about the need on the blue line since the season began, and John Klingberg was a train wreck from the get-go. So they've got other problems to address. They got a fourth line that can't be put on the ice on most nights without taking on water, 3 seconds into their shift. So I just think they're going to have to try to go back to Samsonov again. They're going to give him the week off. They're going to try and get him back to where he was last season. And even if he's like 50% of what he was last season, it'll be a lot better than what he's been this season.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not hard to be a lot better than he's been this year. I mean, I think a part of it what will factor in is when Woll returns, what Hildeby looks like. In other words, are they desperate to force Samsonov back in and close your eyes and hope it's going to work? But I'm going to deny it because they're not committed to him long term. Like Edmonton is a different situation with Campbell. He's got 4 years left on his deal.
Tough.
Like they're either going to buy him out or they're stuck. Or if you're going to trade him, you got to put like a serious piece or two on it. I'm not sure anyone wants to take that on. The Leafs made it clear in the offseason, even with a new GM, they're not committed to this guy long term. They're not. So I'm not sure he had a future here anyway. And then you play the way you're playing, you're almost halfway through the season. I'm going to deny it.
You make the argument that the Tree Living's decision to only give this guy a 1-year deal and to make sure go to arbitration, fight for it. Because coming off of last year, I don't think anyone would have batted an eye if he got a 4 or 5 year deal at 4.5 per. Like that conversation was out there. It's like, yeah, he had a great season, top 10 metrics. Pay the guy. You finally have a goaltender. Thank God he didn't.
Massive.
Thank God he didn't. That might be the best move he's made so far as a general manager, is not committing and waiting it out with Samsonov, because last year was kind of an anomaly. So
yeah, it's a good point. Like, it's not always what you did; it's what you don't do.
Or if this is all about psychology, did the arbitration and the lack of belief from the organization kill his confidence?
You could.
I mean, I guess we'll never know. But what
happened in Washington?
And I'm not gambling that this guy's going to be great, because only if he gets a 5-year deal. I mean, that would be poor management.
I'm being the devil's advocate. I think they made the right move, not signing him to a long term.
But I hear what you're saying. That could factor into an extent with his confidence.
I think there's been suggestions of that from his camp.
Sure, well, I'm sure that's going to happen a lot moving forward. Confirm or deny, Pascal Siakam will finish the season as a Toronto Raptor.
I am going to, I guess I'll stick to my guns earlier. I'm going to confirm it.
Confirming it.
I'm going to confirm it.
Right.
I call me crazy, but I'm a little skeptical after this trade. And maybe this is just, the Raptors fan in me, but I thought they played well last night. I think that there's a possibility that they come out in the next month or so. What do we got, a month till the trade deadline?
Yeah.
5 weeks. And they like the product that's out there. And perhaps they say, okay, maybe there is still something here. And we could try. And here's the thing, too. Was it till the end of the year or next?
Yeah, the end of the year. Yeah.
We've seen Masai do this multiple times where he hangs on to pieces and he knows I can do a sign and trade at the end of the season. So if he doesn't get his ask, so there's two things. He can either stick around long term, and Masai has proven that he's willing to do that. Didn't get my ask, all right, I'm going to wait till the offseason.
Yeah, he has. You're right. He has been very stubborn to the point where he's like, I'm not trading Fred for that. I'm not trading Lowry for that. And yes, he got a side and trade for Lowry, and now nothing is left from it with Precious going to New York. And with Fred, they couldn't. So you'd like to believe he's learned his lesson on that about being stubborn. I think the Anunoby deal would speak to me that he realizes, okay, I got to move on these guys.
Perhaps.
I'm going to deny it, because I think, again, he has proven, Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, they want to believe, they keep evaluating. He may back himself into that corner that I actually like. I don't think he should, though. I don't think, even with Emmanuel Quickly here and RJ Barrett here and Siakam, this still is not anywhere close to a championship contending team.
No.
They're not.
No, it's not. But I'm gonna confirm it, because there is some logic to re-signing him and then trading him. Okay, and it's not, now the longer you wait to do that, the longer you have to wait to trade him. And they missed that late December deadline that would have allowed them to trade him around draft and free agency. So you're pushing it back, which is not great. But look, Masai, like, old habits die hard for Masai Ujiri. He's, as much as the Anunoby trade is an exception, the rule has been he holds on to guys.
Yeah, he does.
And I'm not necessarily, and because we know that Siakam's been dangled for a long time, and a lot of teams have kicked those tires and pondered those possibilities, and they haven't moved on it. I just think maybe those have dried up, and maybe the market's not there for this guy in the way that Masai wants it to be. Therefore, he sticks with him.
Does Siakam, like, I know he keeps saying he really wants to be here.
Yeah.
Like, do we believe that 100%? Like, no question he wants to be here? Or
Well, I mean, when he said he didn't want to sign anywhere else in the offseason through an intermediary via sources to NBA insiders, there was a kind of a presumption that was because his best chance at a supermax contract was to become an all-NBA player, and the best place to do that was in Toronto.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
plays would go through
ship
him
has sailed on that this season. He's not an all-NBA player this season. So I wonder if that changes the way he looks at that landscape.
Yeah, and I'm not disputing he loves being a Raptor in Toronto or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a difference between I'll do anything I have to stay, and ideally I'll stay,
Right.
but maybe I won't. Maybe, because Van Vliet, I don't know, Fred, it seemed like was maybe ready to turn the page, but it didn't hurt that Houston drastically overpaid him.
A little
Yes.
out of the water.
Yeah, to the point where he's like, I have to take that money. And even I'm sure Messiah and company were like, go ahead, man. What do you want? We're not matching it. They
No.
could have.
No.
They didn't. They weren't going to.
They couldn't, though. They couldn't match it. It didn't make sense.
Yes. Technically, though, they could have.
They could have.
If they
but
wanted to, and it was not going to make any sense. It made sense for Houston. It's paid off well for Houston. Fred's been great down there.
Oh, yeah.
It's been outstanding
It's
for
been
them.
a lot of fun to
It's
watch.
exactly what they needed. All right, confirm and deny. Martin Jones should start back-to-back games. L.A. tonight, Anaheim tomorrow.
Deny. That's a swift deny. I want to see Hildeby. They want to see Hildeby.
Okay, but is that
Everyone
going to give
wants
them
to
a
see
better
it.
chance to win? It's not a Disney movie.
I mean, does it give them the best chance to win? Probably, but I think Hildeby, it's a poor opponent, right? And you're out on the road trip. I think this is an opportunity to kind of insulate them a little bit out on the road, away from Toronto. If you're going to play this guy at some point, tomorrow's the night where it makes the most sense. So why would you call him up from the minors where he was playing games for the Marlies if you're not going to play him?
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make sense not to play him.
All right.
Does he give them the best shot to win? Probably not. Martin Jones probably does, but does it make more sense, I would say, to start Hildeby over Jones tomorrow night?
Yeah, I'm with Al's brother on this. Like, the best goaltender is the goaltender you haven't seen be terrible. You know what I mean? Like, the
Jones
league,
hasn't been terrible.
like that's what. And Sheldon Keefe is ready for someone that he has no baggage with.
Yes.
He's tired of watching Ilya Samsonov in the net. He's happy Ilya Samsonov's getting a break. He knows who Martin Jones is. He's a sub 900 guy the last 6 years. A competent veteran, but below average.
The whole
competent.
league is around there right now.
Yeah,
True.
you're right. It's not a great goaltending league. It's not a great goaltending year, but they want to bring on the Hilda Beast.
I agree. I'm denying it. Hildeby for a bunch of different reasons. On top of the fact that Jones is carrying a lot of water for you right now. Like, you don't want to overexpose him, risk injury. If he gets hurt, what the hell are you doing? Keith Petruzzelli and Dennis Hildeby.
Oh boy!
I mean, you're
Lucas Cavalin.
That's what I'm saying.
Coming up from
You're an injury away
out on the rock.
from calling the ECHL.
Yeah.
Like that, you got to be careful, man. You got to protect Martin Jones. So for that alone, don't play him. It's got to be Hildeby tomorrow. All right, we'll come back with a few more confirm or denies, including are the Baltimore Ravens the best team in the NFL? My man Jordan Love proving that he can be a top 10 guy in the NFL. Morgan Riley, we got something on that as well. Al's brothers in here. Dave Feschuk, I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. Confirm or deny continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Chris Johnston coming up. Leo Routen's coming up. Our best bets brought to you by FanDuel. Confirm or deny continues. Dave Feschuk of the Star in here. Mike DiStefano, a.k.a. Al's brother, in here.
That was a funny line you had about, like, protect Martin Jones. I'm thinking, can Martin Jones and the Hildebeest be on the same plane even? Maybe you need a separate plane for the goaltenders right now. If you're talking about
like the
dipping
president
in,
and the vice president, and they can't be in the same room.
right. You got to, like, think about this. Like, let's, like, because you don't want to be dipping into the East Coast Hockey League at this point in the season.
You're right, man. Yeah, the last survivor? We need Kiefer Sutherland somewhere.
That's
right. Doing his thing as a goaltender that you can always have available.
Two planes. The Raptors are going west. The Leafs are going west. And Martin Jones has a separate private plane.
The thing is, Martin Jones was Kiefer Sutherland, and now he's running the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, as the number 3 away from the team, you had Woll, Samsonov doing their thing. But all of a sudden, things blew up in the goaltending department. Now Martin Jones is running the show.
Yeah, he needs his own plane. They can afford it.
I'm just saying, man.
Yeah, he needs to be. You got to make sure Martin Jones is protected. That's where we are in this season.
Yeah.
January 2nd.
Maybe the Dragon's Den guy can hook him up.
Yeah, exactly. Robert Hershevik. Yeah.
Hershevik.
Hook us up
He was
here.
great, by the way, on the show.
Yeah, he was. I mean, listen, he doesn't have many cares in the world, I don't think, Robert. He's just doing his thing. And listen, he was on that plane. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I don't know, man. Like, if there's a flu bug, Martin Jones has got to be immune to it. Like, get him immunized, vaccinated, whatever we need to do here. Mask him up.
Yeah.
He cannot be unhealthy at this point.
He's got to be healthy. All right, confirm or deny. My boy Jordan Love has proven that he can become a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
I'm going to deny that.
Have you seen this kid play recently? You see how good he was?
Outside of yesterday, what's he done the 3 weeks prior?
He's been spectacular in the second half.
Season away here.
That's not true. It's the defense that's puked the season away. It has not been Jordan Love.
I still think there's plenty more quarterbacks. I mean, can he be a top half guy, like a middle of the pack guy, 15th maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to sit here and name all the names, but like Allen, Mahomes, Lamar,
Burrow, Herbert.
I think there's
Lawrence.
a very large number of players who are better than Jordan Love. So I'm going to deny it. Top 10's a little lofty. Top 15, I'll give you that. Top 10,
All right.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going to confirm it.
Stroud.
I'm going to confirm it. Yeah, Stroud's probably.
CJ's a stud, although
Look,
the concussion ended that.
If I'm going to get down with Jonas and the cronies, I'm going to go to the QBR, the analytic, kind of be all and end all number. And he's 10th right now.
He's been
so
great.
He's top 10 right now behind Purdy, Prescott. You know the list.
Yep.
Kirk Cousins is better than him. He's probably knock him out of there, and he's 9th. Okay. Yeah, I think he's got that raw talent, and I trust the Green Bay Packers on one thing. Not a lot of things, but one thing. And it's seeing QB talent.
Yes.
They've got this. They were able to look Aaron Rodgers in the eye and say, we like Jordan Love better. We're ready to move on from you.
That's exactly what happened. They were fine with moving on from
And I
Rodgers.
trust that judgment.
I agree. I'm confirming it as well. I have been thoroughly impressed with how composed he's been. He has raw talent, like you said. He's mobile. His arm, he can make basically any throw.
He's good.
Like he's processing the game. Listen, he's got an opportunity to do something this week that Rodgers couldn't do last season. It is a carbon copy.
Yeah.
A team in your division. Last year was the Lions. This year it's the Bears that have had a great second half, loaded with talent, up and coming. You're at home. If he closes on Sunday and punches a ticket, that'll be massive for development. You get playoff games out of Jordan Love in his rookie year effectively, top 10 is in sight.
You called at the beginning of the year, too. You said you thought the Packers were going to do something. You thought they'd make the playoffs.
Here they are.
Away.
Well, listen, I'm not convinced they beat the Bears. Don't get me wrong. The Bears have been really chugging, man.
Like, that team, it must be so frustrating. Like, if you're Ryan Poles, like, you're the GM there, what do? You got the number 1 pick, but this is 2 years in a row now where Justin Fields finally decides to be a competent quarterback in the last
Late in the season.
4 weeks of the season. And it's like, gives you hope. And I was like, what are you going to do next year?
It's the decision of the offseason in the NFL, what the Bears do with that top pick.
Yeah.
The number 1 decision because of what they have in Justin Fields. Final hour coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.